Hi, my name's Matt Locke, and this is the Everyday Athlete Podcast, the podcast for the everyday athletes around the world who refuse to be average and who want to create a legacy of health, fitness, and achievement in every aspect of their life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it's time to forge your future. Welcome to the Everyday Athletes Podcast. You are a GP coach, therapist, and lifestyle medicine physician, which is something we're going to take a deep dive into. But firstly, how are you doing over there in the UK?
We are doing well. Thank you for asking, Matt. It's very kind of you. It's been a bright, sunny day. So when the sky's blue, of course, we do all cheer out, don't we?
Absolutely. And at the time of recording this, the UK have announced a series of lessening of restrictions from the COVID-19 pandemic. Really pleased to hear that. How have you been bearing up? Because it's been a pretty tough year for you guys.
It definitely has. It's been a real sort of roller coaster, hasn't it? Of sort of anticipation and hope, and then the hope is taken away from you, and then the end goal seems further and further away. And I think it's us and our human agility to adapt to change and live with change that's been really tested during this time. And I think if we go back to evolution, that's what we do. That's when we are at our best, when we're evolving and changing. So it really needs a shift of kind of mindset and perspective to be able to just go back to that kind of root of life, which is evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one of the things actually, and we're immediately going off topic, but that's okay. Well, one of the things I have noticed, certainly when the pandemic restrictions were brought in down here being Australia, actually for all the doom and gloom and for all the heartache and cost and loss of life and illness and everything that's caused, actually on a local level, I've definitely felt our local communities pull closer together. Become much more aware of each other, sort of asking, "Oh, how are you doing?" And taking more notice, I think, rather than just being in this whirlwind of life and surrounded by white noise and everything that goes with it. So actually, I think there are many examples of there being silver linings all over the world to what has been a very dark cloud and continues to be in some parts of the world. But it's not all doom and gloom.
No, and I think you're right. I think we have to. There's a lot of sadness and tragedy that's been associated with this for sure. Loss of life, loss of earnings, loss of so much. But I agree. I think there's also been a gain which we would never have had had we not experienced this together, united. And there's something about connecting to your nucleus, isn't there? And connecting, like exactly as you've described, not for everything that's so far apart, but what's actually close to you. And we've been almost forced to do that, whether we're now in our homes more. So that's your immediate environment. And then your local neighborhood, suddenly you're noticing things in that you hadn't noticed before. And that kind of circle feels closer than it's ever been before, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very much the case. So, Alka, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what makes you tick?
I love that question because we always dive into our job titles, don't we? I mean, even as you introduced me, it was like, you are a GP.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do that, don't we? But it's really hard to actually describe the essence of you, isn't it? And what sort of person are you? I mean, yes, I'm a mum and a daughter and a wife, and have two puppies, three children, one husband. Have that, but I actually don't know how to answer the question, "Who am I?" Without actually chucking in job titles. The essence of me is very much about wanting to give, I think, and I comes from being the doctor and wanting to help, but really wanting to do that in a bit of a different way to what traditionally doctors do. And I think for me, it's been a very interesting personal journey discovering that actually is exactly that. Like, who am I? What is your identity? What is your purpose? I think that's such an important, fundamental question for all of us. And, back to the pandemic, I think it's given us space to have a bit of an introspective view and really discover what is it that ignites us and gets us out of bed every morning. It's things for me, it's things like this conversation, being able to talk about what feels important in life, what feels important for people beyond me is definitely the stuff of life for me. So, but yes, I am a doctor by background. I am a GP. I'm a practicing GP, and my big focus is lifestyle medicine, which is very much about handing back health to people, because that's where it belongs. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the doctor, I don't think.
No, absolutely. So if you were to try and describe lifestyle medicine for those who haven't heard the term, or the term could even be somehow confusing, because I guess we're used to, the lay person is used to going to the doctor when they get sick, and inevitably either being referred to a specialist or receiving some form of prescription, which you go to the pharmacy next door to get and collect, and so on. So how does lifestyle medicine differ to that more traditional model that most of us would be familiar with?
Okay, so there's probably quite a few important elements to bring into a definition or a description, really. So the first thing I'd probably want to say is lifestyle medicine is an evidence-based speciality, so it's research backed, and I think that's really important when you need to be sure that there's credibility in the information that you're giving. So it's an evidence-based medical specialty. And what it does is it uses what I call therapeutic lifestyle change, so TLC, and people are familiar with TLC and all sorts of words, aren't they? Tender loving care and all sorts of things. And that is its essence, but it's therapeutic lifestyle changes. So the therapeutic part means that there's a difference. It is there for wellness and feeling good and being healthy. So there's therapy involved, but these are changes based on your lifestyle. And when you think about lifestyle, we all think about lifestyle in different ways. And I'll come on to sort of, how I define lifestyle, and like to make kind of the concepts of lifestyle easy for people. But the idea behind lifestyle medicine is an evidence-based medical speciality that uses therapeutic lifestyle changes to do what? To prevent, treat, and modify symptoms and disease. That's pretty much lifestyle medicine in its essence. And its absolute distinction is what you brought up, which is it lies in not prescribing drugs primarily, but prescribing lifestyle change as the most important therapy for disease treatment, reversal, prevention. And of course, medication, other modalities, they're there, but they're almost a supplement to lifestyle change. So lifestyle comes first, which is actually why my brand, my business, my essence is called Lifestyle First. That's what I predicate everything that I do.
That's music to my ears, really, I have to say. It really resonates quite deeply with me. And I love the fact I've read somewhere on one of your sites or posts that you're trying to redefine health as a verb, not a noun, as something you do, not something you have. And you described it as a life skill. Do you want to just let's dive into that a little? I mean, when we talk about lifestyle medicine, you've given us the definition, which I appreciate, and that's really important to understand, I guess, the foundation on which we're building. But you're talking about life skills, and that it's something that you do, not something you have. So, I guess where do you start when you're talking to someone who's new to the subject, who's come to you with, I don't know, they may have come with whatever their issue is, and you feel that actually lifestyle change is perhaps the place to start rather than the more traditional issuing of drugs and the like. Where do you start?
Maybe start with a bit of an analogy, actually. So your area of expertise is fitness, isn't it? And if we take fitness as the analogy, then we all know that we're not going to grow biceps and six packs overnight. These things take time, and they take building, and they take skill. But actually, we all know that we can build muscle so long as we do it in the right way. And that is the same with health, with skills. You need to have skills behind what you do to create better health, to create better muscle. And as an athlete yourself, I think you'll probably resonate with this, is that we need to oscillate, don't we? We don't continuously activate muscles in the hope that they're going to, get bigger and better and do more for us. We have to rest them. So you can't be continuously pushing the buttons of life. You have to have periods where actually there's rest and recovery, because the gain from that is so much greater. And it's the same with our lifestyles. If we've always got that on button of go, 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 what's going to happen when you overuse a muscle? It tears, it breaks down. And it's the same with life and health, isn't it? So it's very much that analogy of, you know, where to start. Well, actually think about how you build up skills in a gym or of exercise or of fitness or of muscles, and do the same across the whole of your life.
Which in practical terms would mean implementing smaller steps from the beginning and just starting to build on those rather than just going all in from day one and changing everything in your life, which can be either confronting and prohibitive or not sustainable. So the suggestion therefore is just to introduce incremental steps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we tend to do all or nothing. We either say, I'm going to go and, you know, run the marathon, or I'm not going to do anything. Or we say, well, I'm never ever touching, you know, processed food ever again in my life. Well, we can't sustain that. I don't know if you've ever heard the sort of story of the British cyclists and the Olympics, but they went for years, hundreds of years, if the Olympics were going that long, but without any medals at all. And then one year along comes a new coach, and what does he do? He doesn't change everything. In fact, he seems to change very little, but what he does change is the small things. And he makes those 1% gains, doesn't he? He changes the fabric of the seats, he changes the rims of the tires, he changes the massage gel that the cyclists use. And suddenly, you know, they hit the British Olympics and it's medal after medal after medal after medal. Why? Because it's the sort of the increment, isn't it? It's the aggregation of marginal gains is the mathematics behind it. And so if you can skill up in small increments, your gains are going to be incredibly huge. And I think that's, you know, really, really important aspect of lifestyle change, of lifestyle medicine, is actually creating habits and some automaticity in your life as well, that allows change to not feel like it's based on self-control or willpower or determination, but for some things just to be automatic choices in life. Yeah, when you're starting to make change in the beginning, you've got to think it through and plan. But eventually you want these things to become as easy as brushing your teeth, don't you?
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges, and you're right. I mean, a lot of people I speak to, they're kind of all or nothing. And there's I guess a society these days, instant gratification is a thing. You know, we've got food on demand. We can get pretty much anything we want quite quickly, and you know, with all the sort of modern marketing techniques and communication techniques, it's all instant. And yeah, for sure. I guess the life game hopefully is a long game. That's the intention at least. And yeah, I guess it would be a really important starting point for people to understand that it is a long game, and that just incremental steps along the way. One of the things I love about positive lifestyle change, of course, is that invariably people feel better when they start making it a habit and implementing it into their lives. And of course, that's one of the most motivating things in the world. When something feels good or gets you the results you're after, you tend to do more of it. That certainly has been, my own journey, going to following a plant-based diet, and certainly adopting a certain exercise regime, if I can call it that, without making it sound too harsh. It's not harsh at all. In fact, it's very flexible, but nonetheless, it makes me feel good, so I do more of it, and I'm motivated to continue on doing that. But now I know you've alluded to it already. You're the founder of Lifestyle First, and creator of the Lifestyle First method, which is a blueprint for the 10 routes of life to optimize. There are 10 of them, but all aspects of health, from performance, productivity, mindset, health, and more. We probably don't have time to go through all 10 in detail, because for sure you're a font of knowledge, and we could spend, I'm sure, an hour or more on each subject. But what I would like to do, the first one is life's purpose. And I'd love to just park there for a while. And actually, one of the things I read in a post you'd done recently, that in the book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, it said it perfectly, that life is not perfect, and it's time that we accept that. I love that. Could you talk to us from your perspective about the importance of and understanding life's purpose?
Mm. It's a really beautiful concept, purpose, I think, and so fundamentally important. So, I mean, I've been a GP for what, 20 years plus, and over those years, I get to know a lot about my patients. I know where they're going on holiday. I know where their children go to school. I even know what colour socks they wear because they're on my couch and I'm examining them. But you know, the fundamental thing that for a long time I didn't discover about my patients was what matters to them.
Hmm.
Because it's the things that matter to you that become your driver. They're your driving force. So I could talk endlessly about sleeping better, eating better, moving better. My newly diagnosed patient with diabetes, I could talk endlessly about how important it is to minimize this and maximize this. But I couldn't expect that patient to walk out of my consulting room and do everything that I'd asked them to do, because I didn't know what was important to them. Why was this going to be meaningful? And I think purpose is the thing that drives us to get out of bed every day, have that motivation for the day. And it's not only that, it's not only that sort of activation that purpose gives you. And I know you've alluded already to that gratification that we all need. So we do need gratification, but deeper than that, we need that longer term fulfillment. But actually, what research has shown is that purpose is fundamentally connected to survival. So there have been several studies that have been done that have shown that if you have purpose in your life, you live longer. And that's so important to remember. I'm just pausing there because that's something worth considering in quite a lot of detail. Is that, why is that? You know, you've already mentioned sort of needing to feel good about life. And, you know, this is really, really important because there's so many physiological mechanisms in place as well, aren't there, that are very, very sort of interconnected. Our stress levels connect to cortisol, which then connects to immunity and inflammation and all these other pathological processes that are going on in our bodies that connect the sort of mind and body. And it's so important, I think, to have that sense of reason, that sense of why, and spend some time understanding that about yourself. Because not only do you want to live longer, but you want to live happier. And that, you know, again, these are fundamental principles in life. We all want to feel fulfilled, and that fulfillment usually comes from something bigger than us, doesn't it? It comes from something that's beyond just you. And I now ask the very, very simple question. I call it simple, but the very simple question to everybody that I meet, all of my patients for sure, is what matters to you?
Yeah, I know you smiled when you said it. It's a simple question, but I would imagine it stops most people in their tracks.
You never thought about it.
Or you get their first answer and dig in for the real answer.
Yeah. And there's the lovely method of the kind of the 5 why method, isn't it? That, you know, ask why 5 times.
Absolutely.
If you say to what's important to you, what matters to you, family, people will say, or money, or work, or holiday, why? And get to that real crux of what it is. And when you get to the crux, it's often associated with emotion. There's usually an emotion behind your why, which is so important, because emotions are our signals to take action, aren't they? But there's a really nice exercise if people are sort of wondering how to even start thinking about what their purpose might be, or what is all of that about. You know, this isn't about the purpose of life, it's about the purpose of your life. So if you do a 60-second really kind of stream of consciousness, so just set your timer for 60 seconds, write on a piece of paper what matters to me, and just let it flow. No grammar, no punctuation, just words, ideas, memories, beliefs, whatever it is, it's there. You know, that it comes from a place, and it's quick, and it's there, and you'll see those words popping out at you that will allow you to probe more deeply into yourself as well. So yeah, that's something listeners might want to try today.
Yeah, I'm going to try that. That's great. Although I guess, yeah, I'm probably a bit more dialed in. I mean, certainly in my book, it was recently released at the time of recording this. Certainly, in talking to a sports nutritionist, Jen Ryan from the States, And she certainly started the first question, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve when her new clients come to her? And it often is, I want to lose weight. Why is that? Oh, because I want to look better. No, but why do you want to look better? Exactly what you said. Just keep going until you get to the real reason. She said invariably the real reason is they feel crappy. They just feel crappy. That's why they want to lose weight. It just takes a little bit of time to get to that understanding of what it is. They feel a bit crappy. Yeah, but that's the précis. But nonetheless, it often takes, the classic 4 or 5 whys to get there, and really stops people and makes them think. I gave a talk recently, a couple of weeks ago, to a local company. It was their kickoff for the year, and they just wanted me to come in and, I guess, talk about what we're doing and talk about my book, Lead by Example, and all of that. And actually, I focused the whole hour on the journey I went on to understand my why, which led to me leaving the corporate life and locating myself in a part of the world which I love. And yeah, with my wife and 3 dogs. I think you said 2 or 3. Yeah, we're dog lovers, and so on and so on. But it really did stem from me understanding my why, and really understanding what motivates and here, I guess, what my purpose is.
And it's interesting that you've mentioned work and actually leaving work and, almost jumping ship and finding a new purpose and creating new work with purpose. Because I think, again, fundamentally, the workplace is where we spend a lot of our time. And I certainly see a lot of people who have kind of incongruent values to the values of the workplace, and their own values don't match up, and that creates a huge conflict with purpose and why. And again, back to research, but again, what's been found is that people who have a purpose at work also feel that satisfaction, that fulfillment, that happiness. They have better health, they have better futures, they live longer. So all of this is very, very connected. So I think it's also really important to ask yourself, why do I go to work? What is it about work that I'm there for? What is the purpose of my work? Because we all need to feel valued, don't we, when we're
Absolutely.
at work? We all need a sense of belonging. We all want to feel connected. We all want autonomy. We need all of those elements as part of our work. And when we don't get those, of course, that's when health starts to change. And back to the fundamentals of lifestyle is, traditionally work was work and home was home. And, you might go to the gym on your way home and lifestyle happens at home. It doesn't happen at work. But that is not the reality of how we should be living our lives, because everything is very blended. Life is a blend. It's not a balance. We've got to start to sort of intertwine you, the person, in all the different roles that you do, in all the different environments that you find yourself in, and position lifestyle in all of those sectors as well as being in their real priority.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I mean, the job the role I was in, I mean, a number of people I knew actually, or still know, when I announced that I was leaving corporate, I was going to be moving back to Australia and finding my own way, a number of them literally said, oh, you're mad. Like, you've got the best job, you've got the best situation. And in many ways, I understood why. I mean, I understood their comment, because the company I worked for was really a great company, a great employer. And yeah, I was remunerated well, and I had a lot of autonomy and all those things. It ticked a lot of boxes, but it lacked purpose for me. I didn't see the point of it. I couldn't see what impact I was having. And for sure, that honestly made me miserable. I'd become very, very miserable the rest of my life, if you like, was ticking all the boxes. And I don't regret it at all. I mean, I feel more fulfilled now. I don't yet have the monthly hug of the bank account that I used to have. And I don't actually need that. That's the irony, isn't it? I've adjusted my lifestyle to not need that great big monthly hug, actually. I mean, we all have to pay the bills, but that's actually all we need to do, pay the bills. If we're otherwise satisfied and fulfilled, then that's a much better place to be, I feel. And so when we talk about life's purpose, I can certainly, I feel like I can absolutely relate to that. And I also agree that I know a lot of people who they just do their job, and they might do it perfectly well, but they're not fulfilled by it. it's just a job. It's a means to paying bills. It's something they have to do. And again, not to make it too altruistic, we do have to pay the bills. There's no question. But trying to find a way of doing that, or working for a company where the values are more aligned and there's a bit more sense of fulfillment and so on, surely has to be what we're striving, part of what we strive for. And that's what I certainly always encourage people. Employers don't always appreciate that advice, but actually they're missing the point, because if they have employees who are not aligned with the values of the company, then actually they're unlikely to be getting the best out of those employees. And they may well be better off parting company, either changing role or even changing company. And that's certainly my counsel to anyone I interact with on these subjects, is to really understand whether the role that they're doing, the company they're working for, is it really aligned with who they are? And if not, then for sure some sort of change is required. But
it's interesting, actually, isn't it, the concept of money and happiness, and how we do seem to connect the two. But when you look at the surveys, and when you look at people, when I had my sort of real pivot in my career, one of the first things I did was get on a plane and went off to India, and did some voluntary work out there in some of the sort of back villages, with people at the end of their life. And there was poverty, there wasn't money. And yet, you know what, Matt, I saw some of the happiest people there. And so we all say this, money doesn't buy happiness. And we know this fundamentally. I think money gives us freedom to do the things that then we can then utilize to fulfill our passions and our purpose. I certainly wouldn't sort of negate it and say money is not important. But I think, more important is that we can gain that even greater happiness and fulfillment from following what we know comes from that instinct and that kind of sense of value and importance. And these are not easy decisions. I think you and I have both made big changes in our careers and our focus, and used our values to tune into that. But these are not decisions that are easy for everybody to make, not even things that they can contemplate, because perhaps money is so important, or because there are other people involved in those decisions. But it doesn't mean that you still can't find purpose in your work that you're in at the moment. It's a mindset shift. It very much is about recreating your relationship with your work, because we're then moving into the territory of burnout. If you haven't got that relationship with your work that gives you fulfillment, you're on a trajectory to burning out, and feeling that loss of autonomy and belonging and competence. And that's when even your health is even more on the line. So really important to just reframe that relationship with your work. See what you can do, what conversations can you have within your environment that allow you to share your skills, share your expertise. Think about, where do I feel most lit up at work? What do I want to do more of? What actually would I never want to give up doing? What do I want to do less of? Who can I have a conversation with that about? Because I've got other things that I'm going to be able to showcase. And it takes a little bit of bravado, doesn't it, to have those conversations. But where you can't jump ship, actually, do that. But, your working environment can be the place where you find purpose as well.
yeah, absolutely. And one of the, the leading theme of what I tend to talk about leading by example. And I firmly believe that, in fact, we all, regardless of hierarchy here, I'm not talking about an organization chart, even though most businesses need to have one to be organized, and that's okay. But actually, it doesn't matter where on the organization chart you sit. And in fact, just in life in general, the opportunity to lead by example, not only does it have a profound impact on yourself, but those around you. And I often counsel people who are in jobs that perhaps they don't really enjoy, but they feel a bit stuck, don't know what their options are. And then as a starting point, I like to say, well, actually, there are a number of factors in your life that you do have total control over. Even if it doesn't feel like it, there are some, and we dig into what those may be. But as well, the ability to have a positive impact on those around you by leading by example, that in itself is empowering and self-perpetuating almost. And there's a power that comes with that. And I think it's important, and certainly some of the subjects, if not all of them, in the lifestyle method, lifestyle first method, they are things we have control over. We might not think it, but we do. And in particular, we think about, for example, food, exercise, sleep, time out. I mean, your connections, habits, emotions, and all. Those are nearly all of the 10. But we have control over those actually. So, regardless of our financial situation, regardless of our perceived status, which unfortunately society still places focus on that. Regardless almost of our situation, unless it's there are, in general terms, we have control over many things in our lives, and there's something just empowering about understanding that and taking control of some of those.
There are many what we call socio-economical determinants of health as well. So, certainly our environment and our situation play a part, and we can't always choose what adverts are on the sides of buses, and we can't choose what our nearest supermarket is, or how cheap McDonald's is going to go on their burgers. So those sorts of things we can't, or where we live and our housing and all those things that sometimes are kind of just part of our demographic and our kind of socioeconomic stage in life, really. But even within that, as you say, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, let's take sleep as a very fundamental area. It's the most natural physiological thing that we all do. We're all designed to sleep in a rhythm. All of our body clocks, we've got clocks in our cells, and clocks in all of our environments. Our brains guided by a clock. We've got biological clocks. The whole circadian rhythm is one big clock, and if we just tuned into that rhythm, everything would work pretty well. The hormone releases happen at the right time. The melatonin to help you sleep is released at the right time. But what do we do? What do we do instead? We answer that late night email from work at 11 o'clock at night. We scroll on our phones and go, just one more post. We binge watch Netflix because we've just got to get one more episode in, and so we upset, don't we? We upset our natural physiology. But all of those touch points are choice points. We have a choice. Do we scroll? Do I watch one more episode? Do I eat all the way until I go to sleep? Do I, all the things that, as you say, we do have a choice over what we do in those instances, which then have a really big impact on our trajectory for aging, on our trajectory towards Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all of those things actually. And sleep fundamentally is the time when you get your reset, you get your emotional reset, you get your gut reset, your brain has its washout, everything happens that we need to function for the next day happens in sleep. So really important that we actually create choices that enable us to maximize the opportunity that sleep gives us. And we can all do that. There are, just what is the one thing you might do today that will actually going to help you sleep better, sleep longer, sleep with better quality, because you will be a better, happier, healthier person for it tomorrow. When you're irritable with your partner or someone tomorrow, you don't always connect it to how you slept the night before, but actually your emotional tone is determined by your sleep. And I think it's really important that we spend, time reflecting on those sorts of things as well. And also, when you look at people who say, "Oh, I don't need much sleep. I get by with 3 or 4 hours a day. I'm always, productive and I'm on it. I just don't need much sleep." But actually, your trajectory is set for later life to become more difficult. If you look at people like Margaret Thatcher, comes through in the UK, Ronald Reagan. They were the kind of steel horses. They didn't sleep much. They were busy working and, giving to the country, but their trajectory was set for Alzheimer's, dementia, memory issues later in life. And that fundamentally connects to poor sleep, because at night time is when we, as I said, wash out our brains. All those protein fibrils and tangles are cleared out at night. And if you don't allow yourself to do that, you're going to build that up over the years. So yeah, really important, I think, to think about those things, because you have a choice, as you say, about those things for sure.
Alka, I feel like you're speaking directly to me.
Right, Matt.
Out of the list of 10 things, you absolutely nailed the one that I'm appalling at. Really, I mean, I average about 5 hours sleep a night, but I'm not in the mode of, oh, well, that's just who I am, and it's wonderful, and I can perform, and I do perform absolutely. Until more recently, I was doing all sorts of ultra endurance events quite successfully, and holding down a full-time corporate role internationally, and all of those things. But it's not lost on me. I'm absolutely acutely aware that it's not right. I can. Yeah, that's why I was smiling when you were talking. It's like, how does
Well,
she know these things? How
what
does she know?
what you've described is passion. So we often talk about passion and purpose in the same breath, but it's your passion for what you do that is driving you to do more of it. And so you sacrifice, unconsciously, you sacrifice sleep to do more of what gives you purpose, what gives you that fulfillment. But actually, this is where this is where the brakes need to go on, because the stuff that fires you up is also going to be the same stuff that burns you down.
Sure.
Just,
Yep.
yeah.
I was given some advice recently, which I've taken, which I've adopted, and that is that every Friday my calendar is now blocked. So there's no possibility of people booking in meetings and all of that kind of stuff. And therefore, the Fridays now become my choice of what to do. And I have to say, my first 3 Fridays of doing that, I have worked, but I've worked differently, without a sense of pressure, without a sense of time pressure. And I found it much more enjoyable and far more relaxing. And that's allowed me to enter the weekend in a different frame of mind. And I really appreciate that. I don't know that it's helped me sleep better, particularly yet. But nonetheless, it's at least a step in the right direction to making some adjustments.
That's what we were talking about at the beginning, is, it takes discipline. It was not easy for you to have Fridays off and have it blocked out. And those first few Fridays, probably feeling really itchy about, oh, this is a bit unusual. And okay, look, and it's easy to break those self-set rules. But actually, once you get through that discipline phase, it actually, you see the benefits, and you see the ripple effect of the one change that you make. And then you add more changes on it, your Fridays will become revolutionized, and then your sleep will improve because you're eating better and you're stepping out more and you're doing all the other things that will encourage that. So but yeah, I think, don't underestimate the initial discipline that you need to have, but again, think with the end in mind.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, sleep, absolutely, obviously, vitally important, and something I continue to work on. Exercise and food tend to be, if I was to name the 3 things which seem to come up with people I interact with, our audience, if you like, food, exercise, and sleep are the top 3 in terms of being mentioned. And it might not be in that order, but they are somehow all related in terms when we think about health, certainly. From your perspective, um, yeah, when we think about food and exercise, and you've already talked about the importance of sleep, how do you tend to start the conversation around, let's say, start with food, for example? How do you tend to have that conversation with a new patient or client?
So I think it's, again, thinking about, why do we eat? Why are we eating? What is food all about? And I like to think about, food as fuel, food for function, and food for fun. And we need all those elements when we think about food, And if we even look at sort of food for fun, it is fundamentally, food is a real connector, isn't it? Restaurants, memories from our childhood, the aroma of, grandma's cooking. Food is a real connector for us, and we have a lot of social connections around food as well. I think it's really important to maintain that. And I think also, we don't appreciate the sensory experience of food enough either, to really, really understand its value. The idea of, eating whilst you're tapping away on the computer or on that next kind of Zoom call, and having your breakfast or lunch at the same time, is actually, you've missed out on the whole experience of food, because one of the functions of food is fulfillment, isn't it, actually? And understanding the aroma and the texture and the taste and the sound, and really enjoying that. You can only do that if you're focusing on what you're eating and how you're eating. And then, of course, it is, food for fuel is ultimately, it's energy source, and we get very, very zoned in on the detail of food. And I think actually we need to take a step back and move away from the dramas of which diet and what the name of it is, and if it's paleo or keto or plant-based, or the next thing that sort of comes along, and really tune in to what is it that you want to gain or change about how you eat, why you eat, when you eat. And all of those are important: the how, the what, the when. And back to sustainability, eat in a way that actually you can sustain. So when you look at something like intermittent fasting, which is probably a topic all on its own,
Absolutely.
but eating within a time window, we know is important, because it allows, again, enough time for your gut to reset every night. But is it sustainable for you to eat within a 4-hour window forever and a day, or is it not? And if it becomes part of your lifestyle and part of your routine and part of your rhythm, great. But actually, if it's causing irritability, if it's affecting your gut, then it isn't something you're going to be able to stick to or should stick to. So you've got to tune in to what's sort of important for you. And, I think if we all just did one thing and deprocessed our diet, deprocessed our food choices, that in itself would have the biggest gains, even before we got into, omega-3s and 6s and chia seeds and flax seeds and all the rest of it. Because actually, the fundamentals of deprocessing your food and eating fresh and eating whole is going to give you huge gains, actually. So
absolutely.
the first place to start with food, I think.
I really liked, I love that. And one of the, I remember hearing a really simple, lovely way of describing the ideal diet from my perspective. And I think it speaks to what you've just said as well. But it's a guy called Rich Roll, who has the Rich Roll podcast. I'm sort of a big avid fan and follower of his. And he certainly went through major life changes from alcohol and substance abuse, and changed his life around, and certainly went down the whole ultra endurance, whole food, plant-based route. But anyway, the way he described it, he said, guys, don't make it complicated. Like, just eat food as close to the ground as possible, as often as possible. That's it. And the simplicity of that, it's true. I believe it to be true. I certainly buy into that, let's say. In terms of deprocessing the diet, it's along the same vein, isn't it? Without question. But Alka, I'm conscious of time, and I'd love to just get your thoughts on exercise. I'd love to just hear again how you approach that with a new patient or a new client, or even an existing patient who you've been seeing for years that perhaps you feel would benefit from focusing on exercise. How do you tend to sort of frame the whole subject when you're talking to someone?
So you'll know I love my letters and my anagrams, etc.
Yeah.
So I like to talk about exercise basics with people, and basics basically looks at exercise pretty broadly. So the B is balance, A is agility, S is strength, I is intensity, C is cardio, and S, now you've got me there, I've forgotten what that last letter is. How could I do that? Stamina.
I was just about to say that, and they make it easy to remember.
And it is easy, because actually, if you get those exercise basics right, then you've pretty much covered all your bases. Because when we think of exercise, we do, and most of our heads, we're thinking either about pumping iron or we're thinking about running on that treadmill. And actually, it's far more fundamental than that. Balance is so important, the B, because actually, we fall over. And as we get older, we fall over even more. So we've got to work on our balance in order to actually not hurt ourselves when that happens. And it's so important, and yet so easy, simply standing on one leg whilst the kettle's boiling and it's done. You know, this is, again, not something you have to spend a lot of time doing, but thinking about, okay, I'll do a bit of balancing exercising today, and just spending a few minutes every day doing it. So again, balance, I think, you know, 10 minutes every day, 10 minutes even every other day, we know is enough to start to kind of give you that sense of place, which is so important. And agility as well. So agility, the A is your stretch. You know, how flexible are you? And again, we need flexibility so that we actually don't harm our muscles and harm our bones. And now we don't actually spend that much time thinking about stretch, thinking about posture. We concentrate a lot more on contracting our muscles than we do actually on stretching them. But again, you know, spend those 5-10 minutes every day thinking about stretching. I certainly do that, you know, every morning. I love kind of getting up and having a real sort of, you know, good stretch routine to kickstart my day. I know I'm sitting down right at the moment as well, but I'm, you know, constantly standing up, and I get greater agility when I'm standing up. I stand up when I'm consulting, I stand up when I'm on Zoom meetings, and the agility you get from that is huge. So I think, again, important to really think about your agility. And yes, of course, cardio, you know, we know that to get your heart rate up, to get the, you know, muscles pumping, all of that is really important. But to do all of it, I think, rather than focus on one area. And then the key message for exercise has to be, again, I come back to enjoy it. You know, for enjoyment, you have to enjoy exercise. A, you'll do it more, and B, you know, you'll share it. You can do it with friends, family. There's all different ways of exercising as well. But, you know, get that old skipping rope out, get that hula hoop out, climb on the ground with your kids, and you know, there's so many different ways, but keep it fun. So yeah, try and keep smiling while you're exercising, and you'll feel much better for it. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, everything we're about with the Bay Games and now the Wellness Warriors program, it's all about functional fitness. That's what we're about. So you mentioned biceps earlier and six packs, and they're fine, but that's not what we're. You know, that's very much vanity training, and I'm not going to demonize that. No worries. If that's what you're looking for, game on. As long as you're taking care of everything else as well. And I actually love the acronym of basics, because it's so perfectly walks you through every aspect of the sort of holistic approach to fitness. And you're right, it has to be fun. And certainly we aim to achieve that as well, because you have to make it fun. And often for us, that involves working out training and maybe competing, friendly competition, but in pairs or teams of 4. And then you're getting that human connection as well, that human interaction, that collaboration, that conversation. That's so important, that certainly is more likely to put a smile on the dial, and work its magic from a mental health perspective too, let alone the physiological realities of getting the endorphins flowing and all of those things that we know as well. They're a fact, and they work. I appreciate it very much. Alka, I think we're probably there in terms of time, and I feel like we're only scratching the surface with you. So maybe this is not the first and only time we have you on the podcast, and I'm conscious you're very generous with your time, and would love to have you back on, but you don't have to commit on camera. But
lovely having a conversation. It's been very easy to just flow into, and as you say, we're off on tangents before we've even known it. So there's so much depth to get into, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And look, I'm very grateful for your time and for you sharing your message, and for I guess doing what you do. And if people want to find out more about you or about the Lifestyle First method, how would they do that? Where would they go?
What's the easiest way? My website, of course, dralkapatel.com, has got sort of information. You can drop me a message on there as well. I'm on all the usual social media handles and channels as well. So I'm at Dr. Alka Patel UK. So happy to kind of be messaged through there as well. Always up for a good chat. Happy to answer questions as well. So those are probably 2 easy places to find me. Like you, I've got a podcast as well, the Lifestyle First podcast. So it's got lots of tips on there as well. So yeah.
Excellent. For sure, I will put all of that in the show notes so that we can make it easy for people to get in touch with you, or indeed to tune in and have a listen to your podcast. But with that said, thank you again for being on the podcast. Really appreciate your time. And I'm conscious it's in the evening where you are in the UK. So thank you for that. And yeah, look forward to chatting again.
absolutely. No, thank you. It's been a really lovely conversation. So thank you so much.
Well, there you have it. Thanks very much for listening. And if you've enjoyed this, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell icon so you get notified every time we upload a new episode. And if you think that one of your training buddies would also enjoy this, go ahead and share it with them right now. With that said, thank you once again. And as always, be brave, have fun, and lead by example.